Guys, I'm not doing well. I've been doing a lot of anime stuff recently, so much that I fucking hate myself. Like, I never thought it was possible for me to like something anime related, and here I am. I need something to bring me back to reality, and what better way to do that than by watching a shit film? I got nothing, so let's turn to the wheel of horror to decide my fate and how much I want to fucking hate myself tonight. What the f*** is the Empty Man?
Oh, come on, Mandy. How old are you?
Tell him the rest.
On the first night, you hear him. And on the second night, you see him.
And on the third night?
Well, on the third night, he finds you.
No! So here we have the Empty Man, which seems like the bastard son of the Bye Bye Man and the Slender Man movie. And if you knew anything about these things, is that they were a little too fucking garbage for this world. Apparently it's based on some graphic novel I've never heard of, and it was filmed in 2017. When they screened it for test audiences, they weren't exactly big fans of it. Neither were the executives. In fact, they had so little faith that it led to the studio shoving it out into theaters in the middle of a global pandemic. Like, I was watching a re-release of the first Annabelle in theaters, and all of a sudden I see this trailer for the Empty Man come on. Then they described the Empty Man himself.
Hey, wait. We gotta try it.
Try what?
Calling the Empty Man.
Who's the empty man?
If you're on a bridge and you find a bottle, you blow into it, and you think about the Empty Man. Well, on the third night, he finds you.
I just burst out laughing in the middle of the theater because I thought it was so fucking stupid. When I went to look for the trailer online, it hadn't even released, and the film was coming out in 2 weeks. That's when I decided I'm gonna watch it. Then I fell asleep during it. You see, the Bye Bye Man and Slender Man at least had the decency of only being 90 minutes long, which is still 85 minutes longer than it should have been. No! This film is an agonizing 2.5 hours! Wouldn't you know it, I was the only sucker who wanted to watch it because nobody went. It did so poorly that... Hold on. Let me grab my physical copy of the film that I use for reviewing these things. Yeah, the film didn't get a physical release, and I mean, come on, if The Incredible Bulk can get a physical release, then Dermatitis can too. It got dumped on streaming platforms, never to be seen again. Except people are rediscovering it because they're lonely and it's the middle of a pandemic. It's being called a cult film even though... Guys, it just came out, like not even a year ago. I don't know, maybe I missed something during my nap. Or maybe I'm wasting my time, but who knows? Maybe after my 4th viewing, I'll finally start to see this film's value. So, jumping into the film, we have a group of hikers climbing up a mountain.
What are you guys waiting for? Come on! Come on! Oh, come on! It's fine! I think.
Yeah, guys, it's perfectly fine to be on this rickety-ass chain bridge, which will more than likely give you tetanus. It's day 1 of their hike, and they decide to take a break. They see a storm coming and decide to head back down, but hold on, Paul hears something. So he looks around to try and find it despite no one else hearing it. Paul gets his wish because he's certified in falling into extremely obvious ravines. While everyone else is going, what the f***? How did you not see that? Greg goes down after him and finds him praying, staring, I don't know, at this thing who must have had a bitch of a time trying to find a shirt with 8 armholes. Paul tries to warn him that if he touches him, he'll die. But Greg was never good at listening to people, so he touches him and... Paul has a seizure? They try to get him off the mountain, but the storm is closing in, so they decide to break into this house and stay there until the storm passes.
Let's get his clothes off him and check him for insect bites.
No, I did not sign up for this kind of movie! While doing so, they find this weird flute on him. After they finish stripping him, they find out that nothing was wrong with him physically. Rather, it's in his head. They decide to stay there in the stranger's cabin while they wait for the storm to pass. Day 2 and the storm rages on. Greg and Fiona head out to find... I don't know what they're doing. They leave to do all while Ruthie here is stuck with the comatose Paul. She sees a figure outside and rushes them for help. Yeah, maybe it's people who own the house that you broke into. The figure rushes her and tries to break in, but turns out it's really Greg and Fiona trying to get in. Ruthie wants to get the f out of there and is screaming that they should leave, while Greg and Fiona just sort of stare her down. Then night comes in. Wait, so they did nothing after that outburst? Like, didn't she try to leave or what? Paul is, I guess, speaking tongues or some shit, and he takes off. And day 3 begins with the group searching the mountain for Paul. They eventually find him near the bridge from earlier, blowing into that stupid goddamn flute. They try to talk to him, and then Ruthie decides that whole murder thing is pretty fun and wants to try for herself. And murders Greg and Fiona, all while Paul is saying, "I told you so." Then the movie has a seizure, and Ruthie goes skydiving off the ledge. Paul goes back to playing the flute, and seriously, does this movie have a problem? Should I take it to the doctor or something? Yep, they spend 20 minutes on characters who, for the most part, die and explain nothing about the overall plot. This part honestly feels like someone's short film kind of stapled onto the movie. Don't get me wrong, it's beautiful to look at, and it's pretty good on its own. But here I just find myself going, wait, what? What are we doing here? So now we get into the actual film. Meet James LaSombra, your friendly neighborhood jogger who constantly hears, "Where were you?" He runs a security company and he's an ex-cop with a dark past. He heads home and finds this girl, named Amanda Quayle, who's rocking the Will Byers haircut. She explains how her father and James's wife and son died a year ago and she came to check in on him. And to say how she found something so wonderful and freeing. Death?
And it's helped me to realize that nothing can hurt you. Because nothing is real.
Oh yeah, is this real? Ah!
Man, a lot of things are real.
Were they?
God, I wish you said that earlier. Ah,
What if our thoughts actually begin somewhere else? And they travel through us like a signal traveling down a wire. Thoughts that are old and hidden and singular.
oh god, she's a conspiracy nut! Dude, you should get the out of there while you still can. Eventually, she leaves and he heads in to get some sleep. Oh god, the whispers won't shut the up! They're so loud that he can't even sleep. He goes to get some medicine and gets some water in the weirdest way possible. Like, is it that hard to get a cup, or is this just the easiest way to drink water? Now we're back to day 1, and James heads over to Amanda's mother's house. This is Nora, and she is not doing well. Amanda is missing, and the police investigate her room and find some strange things in there, like an all-black poster? What's even the point of having it up at that point? As well as a message in the bathroom that says the empty man made me do it. To what? Forget how to use a period in a sentence? The police question Nora and she says that Amanda had a panic attack in school, and the police try to imply that Amanda ran away.
She appears to have deliberately packed.
That's not what happened. I know my daughter. Christ. Don't you think I'd rather that was the case than what I'm afraid of?
Jesus Christ, this is so f***ing dumb. They find her journal and it reveals that she has a kinky second life. But that doesn't help much with the investigation. The police think that Amanda is distressed and is acting out to hurt Nora, and so the police plan on doing jack shit. So James steps back into the role of a detective and takes on the case. He looks through her journal and finds a flyer for the Pontifex Institute with the word Tulpa on the back. Nora gives him a list of Amanda's friends, and he ambushes one of them outside of their school. He begins questioning her, and it turns out that Amanda was screaming in class. But why, you ask? Well, it all started 2 days ago on a bridge where Devara and Amanda are hanging out under the stars.
When I was little, I had this theory that I could prevent anything bad from happening by thinking about it beforehand. Every time I got into a car, I had to think about all the different ways we could get into a car accident. Because what are the odds of getting hit by a bus when you just thought about getting hit by a bus?
Man, she should become a writer for Final Destination. I bet she'd do real well there. So her and a bunch of her friends are hanging out, doing teen things like drinking and smoking, just begging to be murdered. Until Amanda finds an empty bottle on the bridge. So get this, if you're on a bridge after dark and you find an empty bottle and blow into while thinking of the empty man, he'll come for you. On the first night, you'll hear him. On the second night, you see him. And on the third night, he finds you. What were the writers on while writing this? What made them suddenly decide to try and make bottles scary? Were they just like... I have an idea. You know those killers that stalk their prey and kill them? Yeah, let's do that. But they have to blow in a bottle first. What? Yeah, it'll be totally scary, I promise. Dude, I don't even know you. Why are you asking me? Just spreading the good word of the empty man. What a fucking lunatic. Naturally, they all agree to do it after hearing such a compelling story, and you're just asking to get sick by blowing on random-ass dirty bottles on a bridge in the middle of the woods. If the empty man doesn't get you, then pneumonia will. Then they get chased off by some guy blowing into a bottle on the other side of the bridge. Devara later sees Amanda talking to this guy. She couldn't understand it. I mean, she's not wrong. It's just incomprehensible. She gives James the address for one of the teens Amanda was with that night, and she takes off.
Hi.
Yes?
Does Brandon Maybaum live here?
Have you seen him? He's not home.
Dude, if they've asked you if you've seen him, then he's not home. Just how bad of a detective are you? Yeah, they shut the door on his ass and he moves on to the next dead teen on the list. And he just casually breaks into their house, and turns out that plain black posters are all the rage with dead teens these days. Then he finds a dead dog. F this movie. Kill all the teens you want, just leave the dogs out of this. So yeah, James can't find any of the other teens, so he heads to the bridge that Devara mentioned. I call bullshit that the same bottle is still there 2 days later. So James decides he wants to get sick too, with that whole empty man fever that seems to be all the rage of kids these days. And he blows into the bottle. He goes down a manhole, and good job! You found the kids. They may not be alive, but hey, you found them. Plus, I love how they're hanging in a perfect line. Like, that takes some serious time and planning. But who could have done this? Oh, it's the empty man. Of course, naturally. But Amanda is still missing, and James has only one place left to search. Wait, hold on. Where the f*** are we, and why is Devara naked? I guess she's at a spa or something, but a really shitty one, because there's no one in sight anywhere, not even a staff member. After a few minutes of her showering, she's attacked and killed by the empty man in the weakest scissor kill I've ever seen. But it turns out that I guess the empty man possesses you or something, because it looks like she killed herself. So why was she in a spa again? I'll tell you why. Because nudity. It makes people go to the movies. Where are my tickets? The police question James about Devara, and they think that it's a suicide. The detective tells James a story about a woman who fed her child to a pack of stray dogs because it was whispering to her, and she wrote the empty man in her kitchen. Those words were also found near Devara's body, and they think that the case is unsolvable. While James says, oh yeah, just watch me solve this case. He heads back home, and we get one of those good old-fashioned internet research montages with only the most credible of sources. Wikipedia, where he finds that the Pontifex Institute has had a rough past, and that is an understatement. They had some murder-suicide at a cabin in the woods in 1991 while they were trying to summon a tulpa, and if you have no idea what the f*** that is, don't worry, I'm sitting here wondering the same thing too. Okay, so it's thinking really hard until you create a body from your mind. I think this movie's gone f***ing nuts. Citation needed? Yeah, because I'm convinced someone just made this up and the scriptwriter just went with it. Oh, we even got some math here. Thought plus concentration plus time equals flesh? Oh, really? Here, let's try to manifest a $200 pop. I'm sold! Nora shows up and she's not holding up too well. So James comforts her and she wants to stay, but turns out they had an affair sometime in the past, and he isn't eager to bring that up again. She leaves and he heads to bed with more nightmares of his dead family. He wakes up, hears something, it's nothing. Okay, cool. Day 2 begins with James going through his morning routine and checking out the Pontifex Institute. So the obviously not a cult guys, we swear, is a pretty fancy one at that.
We were established in 2013, but what we can offer you is as old as time.
Sure, keep telling yourselves that. Can the brain itch? I've been scratching for 3 hours and it hasn't itched, so I'm going to say maybe. The scientific method is a tool of oppression. Yeah, it sucks we have to be able to prove that all the experiments I've been doing are real, because otherwise without it, man can shoot laser beams and turn back time, and by man, I mean me. He tries to question the receptionist, but she pieces out and says, oh, don't worry, you'll get your answers. James heads to the leader's sermon where he starts spouting out about how there's no such thing as loss or disunity. I bet you he really f***ing hates the Bible game. After his speech, James asks him about the empty man.
The empty man is a meditation. Focal point for the targeted manifestation of hidden energies.
Right, and already you're starting to lose me.
They lost me an hour before I put this movie on.
Just as man feeds and is fed by the biosphere, the atmosphere, so it is our thoughts feed and are fed by the noosphere.
Is that the name of the new Call of Duty or something? Whatever. He says, we're all blind. And he goes on a long-winded speech about how, if he says something enough times, it becomes gibberish, and the meaning is lost. And that is the empty man. And that is bullshit. James isn't convinced either. And before he leaves, the leader thanks him for returning, even though James has never been there before. He then asks his Joe Keery lookalike if he's seen Amanda. He says no, and James isn't buying it. So James decides to show himself around the compound. He follows these guys, and they lead him to this room. Nothing weird here, just a bunch of people staring at that same black poster that was in Amanda's room. While a message says, nothing exists. At this point, I don't even think they're listening to me. He then walks into a file room containing something called Manifestation 14 and this creepy-ass basement, where he stumbles into a cult meeting, where it turns out everyone's infected with empty man fever. But he makes a noise and they know he's there. They ask him to show himself, but he's not fucking stupid and opts not to do that. Then he hears another noise and looks to see what it is, but finds nothing. Then we have, oh Jesus Christ, a bottle blowing circle? Man, what if it just turns out this cult's a really weird country band? He then gets kicked the out of there for trespassing. But that Joe Keery wannabe is back! He tells James that Amanda was here and she's moving up in the world of cults. She's at a Pontifex camp downstate where she's getting pre-released in yada 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 cult jargon, which apparently comes to them in dreams. Oh god. In their dreams, they hear his whispers. Whose whispers, you ask? It's the empty man. It's always the empty man. Like, that's all they talk about. How do you not know who it is? So he heads to the camp through the use of a cool scene transition, and he arrives at Camp Elsewhere. James takes a look around and arrives at this cabin by the water, where he finds all the cult's highly sensitive files out in the open for anyone to see. They have a file for everyone! Amanda, Devara, James... Wait, what? Yeah, they got one on him too. What do they have on him?
Yeah, okay.
So why even put the folder in there if it's empty? Maybe it's because James is the empty man all along or some bullshit, I don't know. He heads to another cabin and finds out that they were alcoholics. He wanders into a back room where he and this bear watch a tape called Manifestation 13, where I guess they made a snuff film. Apparently James got too invested in the tape because when he looks back out, the bear is gone and it went from being broad daylight to it being pitch black outside. I have no words. He sees a light in the distance and goes to investigate it. He finds a whole crowd of people dancing around a fire while chanting. He goes to get a closer look and maybe the cult isn't bullshit after all because they made the fire do this and the star do this? I don't know. He goes to leave and they suddenly stop chanting and the fire goes out.
Yeah, no.
He gets chased by the cult back to his car, but thanks to the power of strobe lights, he's able to get away.
What the f was that? What the f was that?
You're asking the wrong person, bud, because that is the first sensible thing I've heard in this entire movie. He brings the evidence he gathered to the police, but they dismiss him and call him out for breaking the law because he's not a cop anymore. Which is what I've been saying the entire time, but no! He's going to go even further than simply trespassing or breaking and entering. First, he heads back to his shop to grab supplies. Then, he heads to Nora's house to tell her to go on and get the f*** out because of the spooky cult. And she just looks at him like he's insane while he's explaining all of this.
Do you have a place you can go?
I have to work. I mean, what am I...
That's what you're concerned about? Not the fact that your daughter joined a cult and is maybe coming to get you? He takes her to a hotel and reassures her that her daughter's not dead. He asks if Amanda knows about their affair, but she says, I don't think so. Then James suffers from more nightmares, including the whispers upgrading to yelling. He wakes up and after a smoke break sees the empty man, and then his doorbell goes off. Oh, look! There's the bear from the camp! Dude, it's a stuffed bear. Are you afraid it's gonna bite you or something? It's not a dog. He takes it inside, and the next morning, he opts not to take his medicine. And now, it's the third day. James spends the majority of the day stalking this wannabe Netflix actor. Also, why are you taking the Colt's bear with you? This car just keeps picking more and more people up. They end up stopping at a hospital and, oh look, it's Paul from the beginning. Somehow he made it back to America. Good for him. He's moved up in the world. He went from some hiker or something to being the prophet of a cult where people literally bow down before him. Later, Garrett gets dropped off and James kidnaps him in the middle of a crowded street in broad daylight, and nobody gives a shit that any of this is happening. So, apparently, according to Garrett, Paul is an antenna. He picks up transmissions or something, and they listen to him. Yeah, that just doesn't work. James pulls over because he's had enough of this shit.
Thought is communicable, that's what they say, okay?
What?
Transmittable. The noosphere is the sum of all consciousness. Not just human. Other minds are there too. Ancient and angry.
Guys are all fucking morons.
You get
Oh my god, this is a fever dream. Nothing makes sense. I guess he's right. There is no reality. Apparently, there's other minds in the noosphere. We get glimpses in dreams and fevers, and sometimes there's a man who acts as a bridge between them and our world. An empty man. I don't know. I blacked out, and all I got was James was beating up Steve Harrington from Stranger Things. He then drives off to go find Amanda. Don't worry, we're almost done. He breaks back into the Pontifex Institute and goes through the files at Manifestation 14. Paul is, I guess, the 14th manifestation of the Empty Man, and for some reason, James's file is also here too. Somehow the cult managed to dig up everything about him within the span of a single day. Like, they even have a coupon he used a couple days ago in here. Also, apparently the cult wasn't lying when they said he was here before, because, I mean, there he is, and ew, he's naked. He goes back to the hospital to try and get some answers and starts with the nurse watching Paul, but she's not giving him any information because of, doctor-patient confidentiality. He asks her how long he's been there, she doesn't know. But after asking about how long she's been working there, that does the trick, and she starts giving him all the highly sensitive information he could ever want. Right after refusing to do so. For 23 years, Paul here's been going between one hospital to another. He's been at this one for 2 years, and he gets quite a lot of visitors. In fact, there's one there right now. He goes in there to investigate and finds none other than Amanda there, and he just greets her so casually.
Hello, Amanda. Been looking for you.
Well, you found me.
Oh god, here comes the monologue. She says he's a carrier, like a carrier signal, modulated by an input signal. He transmits and they receive. His message is contagious. You can't make this shit up. Paul's body can't handle the power. And there was 500 years between the last carrier and Paul, so the cult tried something a bit spicy. They made one. The cult conjured him into being through that tulpa shit from the beginning and had been molding him to become the perfect vessel for the Empty Man. She goes on and on about false realities and shit while James is losing his fucking mind. Also, Amanda knows about James and Nora's affair, and apparently, she made it happen. Ew. She wrote it into his script when they made him.
What high school did you go to? What hospital were you born in? Emancipated heart.
Turns out, he was the cause of the noise from the meeting earlier somehow. Whoa, we don't need any time-traveling shenanigans. This movie's already complicated enough as it is. Now he's being chased after by the spirit of the Empty Man. He gets cornered and tries to shoot the Empty Man, but his gun has glitched the f*** out, and the Empty Man vomits yogurt into James's mouth and possesses him. Afterwards, he heads back to his house and finds it empty, while we finally find out what happened to his wife and son. Basically, after Amanda's dad's funeral, James and Nora hooked up at her husband's wake, while James's wife and son were driving home. She, I guess, gets annoyed by him hitting a coin on his teeth, and she tries to stop him. Then a deer appears and she decides, I don't want to kill a deer, I'd rather die! So they plummet off the bridge and die. James goes through a door and sees Paul. He then unloads his entire magazine into him and kills him. Man, he must really not have liked the prologue. Now James is the new Empty Man, and the hospital are part of the cult too. This movie has one last seizure and then cut to black. So, long story short, the main character was growing in a tube, and I guess everyone was part of the cult all along. Well, I don't even think I can choose the right words to convey how annoyed and confused I am. It's not that I don't enjoy or can't grasp complex plots. I mean, I played WarioWare. It's just, to me, all the stuff they go on and on about just doesn't click for me. I get that people do like this film, and good for them, honestly. It's something they can go in and pick apart and dissect. That's fine. It's just not the kind of movie I'd want to do that for, personally. I don't think it's a bad movie. There's things I do like. The acting was good, and some of the shots they used were cool. Also, the intro was good for what it was. It's just bogged down by being kind of all over the place, and it was honestly just kind of boring in some scenes. There's interesting ideas here that, for me, don't mesh well, and it leads to a film that I find myself having a hard time revisiting. Did I like it better the fourth time? Yes! Did it make sense? Oh, God, no. Either way, if you're into this sort of film, by all means, check it out. If this seems like something interesting to you, then please watch it. Well, seeing as how the cult was right all along, maybe I should try that Empty Man shit. See what'll happen. Well, here we are. I couldn't find a bridge, so this doc's gonna have to do. I also couldn't find a Diet Dr. Pepper bottle, so this #1 rated drink in hell is gonna have to do. Now, let's see if we can trust those damn cultists. What the hell? I knew I should have bought a lifetime supply of brain itching cream. Are you at the IRS? Because I can't afford another audit. Wait, are you here for me? I've always wanted to be a murder victim. Just make sure to get my good side, okay? Ah, what the hell? Nobody told me this was gonna hurt. Ah, ding. I've always got a solution for cult demons on me. Take that! I did it! I killed the cult demon! Well, if I've learned anything throughout this whole experience, it's that you never fill out random questionnaires just because you think, I love making fun shapes. Because that is how you end up with the funnest waste of $1,500 that money can buy.